Good morning and welcome to day 3 of this 30-day advantage to great photos. How did your quest for direct light go? Because today we're gonna use that direct light to create indirect light. Oh yeah. So indirect light is very famous and used in portrait photography. Why? Simply because indirect light creates something very soft, very even, something that wraps around someone's face, and that's going to fill all the parts that might have strong shadows that would deepen the face of a person. On the contrary, brightening everything and adding light into that face is going to make it look younger, make it look better for most people. And this is something a lot of people look for in portrait photography. Now, how do you find that indirect light and how do you recognize it in your everyday life? So just like for direct light, your hand is your best friend for finding indirect light. You're going to use it to see the difference that you have in light between the left side and the right side, or the bottom and the top. So if you see a strong difference between those two parts, and on top of that you see a shadow being casted, you're in direct light. But if there's no shadow casted, like in that scenario, if you look on the table, you are in an indirect light scenario. And the best thing that you can do is try to understand where it comes from. Is it being created because you're in the shadow of direct light? So for example, if you take your hand from direct light into the shadows, you will see it will completely change how it's being lit up and how you're going to look at it. Or is it being reflected from a wall into your hand? This is a great exercise. If you see direct light somewhere, just walk your hand next to the wall and look at what is happening on the inside of your hand, how it's being casted, what kind of color is being casted on your hand. Try to observe all that. Now, there is also another possibility. The light went through an object, for example, a cloth or tainted window or something, and it got softened that way. It's also diffused. So indirect light can be found in the shadows while being diffused or reflected on the surface. Very important to understand how to see it if you want to be able to use it. So now, what kind of effects does it have? Well, let's look at our table right now super quickly. I want to show you. We're going to turn off that big softbox that creates a very indirect light, as you can see. We're gonna go back to some direct light. Now I want you to look at how that little lens is being lit up and the shadow that we see all around, right? You can see the shadows are pretty strong and very defined. Now what happens if I use this giant reflector? What is happening is that instead of having like that very strong patch of light over here and then the shadows, what happens is that everything gets evened out, and this is why indirect light is so good. I mean, look at the effect it's doing. It is great. It's a lot more aesthetic if you want, especially if you're lighting up the face of a person, but it also removes a lot of dimension in an image. Suddenly everything becomes a little bit more flat. So how do we use indirect light? Well, indirect light is, as mentioned, great for portraits, right? Now, besides from portraits, indirect light is also used for product photography a lot in order to remove that strong shadow on one side versus the other. The goal is to lit up evenly an object so that the consumer can see it very easily and understand how it looks from any angle. Also in landscape photography and even in street photography, indirect soft light really helps you remove layers into an image, which can be great if you want to focus attention on a particular subject, or if you want to change the mood of an image. If you want to make it look a lot more flat, this is going to be perfect, and it's going to look a little bit more balanced also. You don't have those layers going in the image. So always remember how you can be using that indirect light, because that will be helpful throughout your career as a photographer. How can we really find those patches of soft light and how can we use them best for our particular shoot? Now, the great thing with indirect light is that it stems from direct light somewhere. So if you're looking for indirect light, don't just look for indirect light, but look also for direct light. And once you found a direct source of light, try to find the indirect light that it has created. Now, for today, your mission, if you choose to accept it, is going to go and observe and find indirect light. I want you to ask yourself the most important questions, which are, where is that light coming from? What is the source of that indirect light? How was it created? Was it reflected? Was it diffused? Is it created because it wraps around a building or an umbrella? And then ask yourself, what kind of color does that light have? Because when creating indirect light, there is a possibility that you're inducing different colors into it. And last but not least, ask yourself, what kind of mood is it creating in your image, and how would you use it for your photo? There's a cheat sheet for you to grab, put it on your phone, go through your day and find that indirect light. I'll see you tomorrow for a new adventure.